My name is Philippe, as you know. And the whole idea of the podcast is talking to talented people with interesting career journeys and yeah, learn from their inspiring stories. Today, we have one guest, Bernardo, aka Bernie. Do you prefer Bernardo or Bernie?
Bernie works just fine.
Bernie was.
Yeah.
Bert, consultant turned content creator, uh, also made the move into Web3 and helping projects that people grow on Twitter and grow on their audience. Um, but yeah, uh, can you give us a quick intro, Bernie? Thanks for accepting our invitation. First of all, well, I'm very interested to explore a little bit your career journeys and different steps and the different roles you had, and yeah, what you have coming up in the future.
Yeah, of course. And thank you very much, first of all, Flip, and everybody who is here listening us today. So I'm Bernie or Bernardo. I'm from Portugal, just as Philippe, which is a huge coincidence. And it's quite, for some, completely crazy. For others, just a normal step. So first of all, who am I and where am I coming from? So for years that I was passionate about technology, and I lived a long time in the intersection between management and technology. I have tech background. I used to code a lot when I was younger, and then I started to pursue this management kind of career where I joined like first PwC and then Deloitte, where I used to work and where I worked for 3.5 years at Deloitte and something like 1 year at PwC. And so my work back then at Deloitte, which I recently left, so I left Deloitte the last 31st January to go full time into Web3 and becoming a content creator and helping people on coming to Web3. And my journey at Deloitte, it has been like helping billion dollar companies to go through their $1 million digital transformation programs. Okay, so I was already the bridge between management and tech people. I have been developing a lot of digital products and end-to-end digital experiences, but all of them on the Web2 kind of world and paradigm. The thing is that over the past perhaps 3, 4 years, I have been watching crypto developing. Initially, it was all things about cryptocurrency and DeFi, and that wasn't my big catch. So I'm not that driven by financial incentives. I used to work in the financial services industry, but that wasn't my kind go-to place or the kind of industry that I wanted to keep working for years. And so crypto and DeFi never excited me enough to make the jump until recently during the 2020 and 2021. I saw a lot of these new thing like the NFTs and then DAOs, and those were my turning point. So since I first saw collections like Bored Ape Yacht Club and Doodles, Noun Project, some of those coming up and launching, I decided that I really wanted to go full time into these to start to scratch the surface, start to learn. And at the same time, I decided that I really want to be a content creator because I've discovered that I love to share my ideas with the world and help others through content creation. So, yeah, this has been my journey over the past 2, 3 years. And as I told you, I am currently full time dedicated to become a content creator. So I'm currently launching my YouTube channel in English where I will explore both my journey as a content creator and recently founder of a Web3 wannabe startup, something like that, yet to come. And at the same time, to keep exploring some concepts around Web3, NFTs, and all of that. At the same time, I am here on Twitter creating content, and I am involved with other projects like Odyssey DAO and other DAOs, helping them to scale their content, scale their reach, and reach more people. So I'd say this is quite a long introduction, but hey, back to you, Flip.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. I think you've touched almost all of the the topics I want to address. I think uh, what do I think will be interesting? First of all, kind of what this between being or going from a consultant to creator. So two very different kinds of careers and kind of what you liked about both, what you learned about both, and why you made the transition. We'll go into that in a second. Also, kind of the Web 2 versus Web 3 kind of worlds, both professionally and career-wise. Of course, I'm also interested in knowing a bit more about your project, about also Odyssey DAO, also some of your personal stories of how you grew your Twitter account and all that. I think you touched on all these points, but let's start from the beginning. So, um, what would you say? So you got interested in tech since you were young, and then at Deloitte, mainly doing that job of bridging the gap between tech and business. What do you think, and especially considering consultancy and Deloitte as a very typical corporate career, what would you say are kind of the main things that you learn doing that job? What do you think are the kind of the good sides, the interesting things about having that kind of career, and of course comparing that with the kinds of careers people are starting to have in Web 3, which are much more less structured, more flexible, more kind of doing projects and work for different projects. So yeah, what do you like about the Web 2 corporate career so
Yeah.
far, and how would you compare it to a Web 3 more flexible one? And yeah, what
Okay.
was that process like for you?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, and this is just a coincidental kind of disclosure, but I remember having something like 18, 19 years old. I was getting into college. And back then I decided, like I promised myself that I would never work more than 5 years for others. And so I have always structured my way of thinking of my career in that sense, that on the first 3 to 5 years, I really wanted to explore the corporate world, the kind of optimization, the optimizing businesses, which is where both PwC, Deloitte, and all those big corporate consulting companies really stand for. They work on the they work with very mature businesses. They try to help them with efficiency problems, with business revenue problems, whatever. So a very different way of thinking when we start to think about building a business. Okay. And I really wanted to jump into the corporate world before coming to the startup world because I remember not being a very structured kind of person. Okay. So, small things like having to present something to someone, having to structure a business rational, a business model. So, a couple of those things, those kind of skills, I have learned those while working both at PwC and Deloitte. And I think that first, they are very useful. Okay. I see nowadays a lot of founders and people, like, for example, when you want to start to build an NFT, if you want to start working on an NFT project, the first question that you have to do to yourself is, okay, this NFT, will it be just about art or utility? And when we are talking about utility, which is nowadays the new wave, let's say, we are really talking about business proposition, okay, or business value, okay. And when it comes about business value, we are talking almost like building a startup, no difference there. And then you have to come up with a good plan to attract NFT collectors. And these NFT collectors can be seen like investors. So, yes, you will have to deal with, for example, a business model, something like that. And having all these skills and these competence that I have gathered from my experience at Deloitte, it helps me a ton when it comes, for example, to have a more human, more strategic insight, having a more structured way of thinking about business. Okay. So this is perhaps the biggest takeaway that I can take from having worked at PwC and then Deloitte over the past almost 5 years, exactly for that, because it helped me to become a more structured person in some ways. Okay. But naturally, now when I come to the startup frenzy, the startup hype kind of world, always rushing, almost no structure, even more in the Web3. So to me, it makes no confusion. And I know a lot of people who get really confused with dealing with ambiguity and all of that. For them, it is like a huge pain, but not for me. Okay. So I have always been this guy like at Deloitte, this guy who never really fitted there. So I was pro innovation, very startup-ish. I had already some experience from startups. I have been consuming a lot of the YC, Y Combinator type of content for years. So my mentality, all the ways that I think about innovation and technology, they are very pro growth and all of that, pro product, and not necessarily pro processes like big corporate companies. So when I jumped from Deloitte and Web2 to come to Web3, it's really a matter of time and time of how much time do I need to commit in order for me to start learning, to start learning what is this industry about, blockchain, what is the NFTs, what are DAOs and all of that. And so it has been quite a very smooth kind of ride for me, pretty smoother than many people, as I have seen. And I think this is first, the biggest takeaways that I can take from Deloitte is my structured mentality when it comes to business. And when it comes to making the jump into Web3 and the startup kind of world, it doesn't really mess me around, so it's quite normal, at least to
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I think that's a good take because yeah, usually people when they look from Web3 to Web2 is always this side is better. Come, but of course, there's a lot of things you can bring and knowledge that you bring that are actually helpful to a very unstructured space like Web3 is today. And I mean, just think about the all those projects, can be NFT projects or not, that they might have a very interesting idea that gets a lot of buzz, but then you need to actually deliver on that idea. And you need to build a product. You need to build I would say a business in some cases it might not be a business, but you need that business structure and mindset to make sure that it is a sustainable
Yeah,
project
exactly.
and operation. And I think those are some of the challenges that we have. So having people with business and product experience. Also, I think the difficult part is having people that understand the culture and that understand the mindset of Web3, because in some ways it's very contradictory to what the corporate and Web2 world are. So you need to be able, first you need to be, I think you need to be able to understand how to have that structure mindset, but you need to be very willing to unlearn a lot of things that you learn. So being able to rethink and think from principles. And I think that's the challenge. Having the knowledge, but being able to throw knowledge away when you,
Yeah, let me just add my 2 cents on that, because one thing that I think a lot of people coming from Web2 will feel a lot of not necessarily pressure, but certain pain is, for example, when you Web3. Yes, that's true. There is no formal structure. Okay, that's a given. And this is like the infancy of Web3. So there is a huge hype, but at the same time, almost nothing really exists. Okay. And when nothing exists, there are no processes, there is no infrastructure. Everything is almost at the same time is both everything is both new, fresh, but at the same time coming from somewhere. And that somewhere is from the mentality from Web 2. And yeah, so I think that's another thought just to bring to the table.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, looking at the same idea of coming from consultancy to Web3, but from a different perspective. I know a lot of people that are in Web3 today that came from the consulting space. I mean, I was a consultant once. My co-founder was a consultant once, and a lot of people that I met have been either management consulting, IT consulting, whatever. What do you think as um, consultant and knowing, of course, people in consulting, what do you think, or why do you think Web3 is attractive, and why do you think so many people make that jump, so to speak, of going from consulting in a corporate setting to Web3? So what's attractive and what's interesting about Web3 that people are, um, yeah, making that jump. You can say
Yeah.
for yourself and try to generalize for other people as well.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. I think that the most important skill a consultant learns is learning how to learn fast. Okay. And I think that's perhaps why we are currently seeing so much people coming from consultancy world. Okay. So for example, the moment I left Deloitte, I was in a very small team, like a task force, to create the first crypto and I kind of offering. Okay. So this was huge. Like I was one of the four people involved in this project. It was a very secretive, like kind of secret initially. In Portugal, I was one of the only person ever to be seated in rooms with people from the US and all around the world to explore blockchain, all their strategies, all their knowledge, all of that. But at the same time, it wasn't enough. So what I think that most consultants and why are we currently seeing so much people coming from consultancy is that they are very good and we are very good indeed on learning fast. And what we are also pretty used to do is to work a ton, so at Deloitte, for example, I used to work like 10 to 12 to 14 hours. And the problem is that consultancy is like the typical industry where you have to always deliver above the expectations. Everybody counts on you to give the next step to go further. Okay. And the problem, as I used to say, is that the Web2 model, it doesn't pay for going further. Okay. The Web2 model doesn't pay for proactivity. Okay, you have performance reviews and evaluations every year, but they do not reflect in the same percentage or amount in your final account. Okay. At least in that sense. Not even talking about impact and all of those. And when we look at Web3, so suddenly, if I work more, I can have some bigger financial upside. If I work less, I will get less, and that's very meritocratic. And meritocratic societies and type of organizations are something that people from investment banking, technology, and consulting will immediately recognize, because that's how these type of industries actually move. Okay, so people both in tech, investment banking, and consulting, we are all very prone into meritocratic systems and organizations. And when we look into Web3, it's very meritocratic. It's very in terms of you being able to put as much effort and commitment as you want, and at the same time taking a good part of the financial upside with you. So I think perhaps, but this is just my opinion and my 2 cents.
No, no, I think it makes total sense. I think those kinds of careers you described have that thing in common where they used to work a lot of hours. They're driven and ambitious, and now they see different way of um, getting probably more returns to the work they put in. And this could be em- uh, emotional, financial, social kind of returns. So the impact that you're creating, the social status of working for a DAO versus working for a big consultancy, and of course the money, and also I think the like you said the flexibility. So you can kind of adjust what you want to put in or the effort that you make. Then you can, I think, more flexible.
Yeah,
Good,
and
good stuff.
see just these examples. So, for example, at Deloitte, I used to work. I had a contract for 40 hours a week, and I used to work something like 50 to 60, and some periods even more. Okay. Um, Nowadays, the problem was that Deloitte, they used to demand from me like full exclusivity, whatever. Okay. So all that nonsense. Suddenly I can be involved in 2 or 3 different DAOs, helping them all growing. I can get paid with their own tokens. And if their tokens like increase in value, I can redeem and get a much better financial upside, and at the same time to foster to improve my expertise in terms of building a DAO and these new way of organizing talent and people. So I think it's much more exciting, and at the same time much more exciting on the side of having impact, and at the same time much more exciting in the sense that you will be rewarded in a much more meritocratic sense or way, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Of course, there's the other side of that coin, which is it's a bit more risky, but I guess the people that we're describing are generally risk tolerant. So that's kind of why another reason for why we see people tracking consulting and Web3.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's um, change gears a bit and talk a little bit about the other kind of transition that you have. So not Web2 to Web3 or but kind of from consultant to creator. So why or how did that start to happen? Because I mean, you said that the common thread between the two is that um, the kind of curiosity, you need to always be learning about new trends and new stuff as a consultant. And also you and kind of the type of content you put out is a lot of that. So kind of digesting complex topics and trying to share kind of your take on them and helping other people learn and doing kind of part of the hard work for them, I would say. But yeah, but walk us through that process from being a consultant full time to being a creator full time, and what were the steps in between? How did you start
Yeah.
to explore that
Okay.
path as a creator?
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure other people like, I mean, like other people are probably thinking about making this jump from Web 2 to Web 3. There's also a lot of people probably thinking about making this jump from their 9 to 5 job to more kind of creator driven type of occupation.
yeah, yeah. My move from being a consultant to becoming a content creator. So it wasn't a thing that happened from day to night. Okay. It was a process, and the process that took me perhaps something like 2 years or even more. I have no idea. So first of all, I have always been this person who loves to share ideas and discuss ideas with people who actually love to discuss those ideas. Okay. I have always been the type of person who like goes out for a dinner, but if it is to speak about others people's lives, I'm not that guy. But if it is to speak about blockchain an entire night, I will be the kind of person who will not shut up. Okay. So that was me, and that has been me for all my life. And a very curious fact is that I have always, or yes, I have been writing for years, like perhaps for more than 10 years that I have been writing. Okay. Like, for example, I write, this is very stupid, but I write a couple of letters like to my sons and grandsons, okay, and daughters naturally. So to my grandchildren and children, like letters for the future, the type of knowledge that I'd love to pass them. Sharing some things that I learned. At the same time, like I have always been writing about politics and technology. But the thing was that for years, I was very scared about sharing those with the world. So what I have is a ton of different drafts on my laptop, and that I have never shared with anyone. Like, for example, I have a very good article of mine, which was an article that I was writing for to send to the Y Combinator partners in 2020 about how COVID would evolve just like a startup, because its virality and its virality will be even more and bigger than like the virality from Facebook. And I was comparing COVID to the Facebook growth, so it was crazy, but I've never sent it. Um, and so I have been writing and creating content a lot for years. And then a couple of years ago, I was living in Lisbon because I'm from Porto, but I lived in Lisbon for 2 years. And back then, I started to grasp the feeling like, okay, I really want to share my ideas. How? And this was the moment that I've started my journey. Initially, I tried to create a podcast, but then quickly I came to the conclusion that I really wanted to create content in English. But the problem was that just like any Portuguese, I used to suffer a lot with my English quality. Okay. So the problem was, okay, I'm not prepared to start speaking in English. And I know nobody in English that I can invite to a cool podcast. And so I just made my journey. So after the podcast, I tried to build an audience on Instagram and it didn't work. And then I started a YouTube channel in Portuguese the last year and I started to get some traction, but it was very slow. And suddenly I came to Twitter. Okay. So I have my Twitter account since like 2012, but I've never used it. And by September, I decided, okay, this is the moment that I will start to create content on Twitter. Let's start doing it. And suddenly I had 54 followers. And in a couple of months, I was with 20K plus. Okay. So my journey has been like very evolving over the past like 2 years, perhaps, and always learning about how to create content, learning about different platforms, different algorithms, and finding my voice. Okay. Now, one thing that I think the frameworks that I have developed both on consulting and from what I have always read from the startup world is that I'm very focused on growth and product management because that's kind of my typical career. I have been working as a product manager at Deloitte, developing product for banks. And the thing was, when I started my Twitter account and created content, I've always done everything like by the book from the startup world, like developing content. I content like my product. Okay, I am my own product, and I just started to develop my content like developing a product and using some things, some frameworks from the growth kind of playbook on my own content. So that's what happened. But yeah, so this was my journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here are interested on knowing a bit more on kind of how you grew from all like 0 to 20K. And was it kind of a year? Less than that, maybe.
No,
Uh,
no, 4 months.
4 months. So yeah,
Yeah.
even better. So I mean, I know that you've written a lot on this, and we can link to that after, so people can read it a bit more. But what would you say were kind of the things that worked the best for you? I mean, I think you mentioned one thing that I think is key, which is finding your voice. So kind of finding kind of what works for you in terms of what gives you, what are you good um, writing about, what kind of style of writing works for you and then works to get an audience. And what else? What would be kind of the three tips or main pieces of advice you would give someone that's going or wants to go on a similar journey of building a audience on Twitter?
Yeah. So I have been doing this for a couple of months now. And so I will give you two different views. Okay. My own perspective as a personal, individual, personal account, and the perspective that I have been using on the Odyssey DAO account. Okay. So Odyssey DAO is a typical kind of brand account. And since January, so we had something like 2 to 3K followers, like by the end of December, beginning of January. And in less than 1 month, we are almost breaking the 9K mark already. And the goal was to reach to 10K by March, but I know that we will be at 12 to 15K by March, if not even higher than that. So uh, the approach, I would say, so finding your voice, it is the first step. Okay. So you have to find your voice. And by this, what I mean is that you have to find what you want to create content about. Okay. And some people, they want to create written content. So Twitter and having a blog is a very good way of doing it. Others want to use voice. And so they go into Twitter spaces and podcasts. Other people go into YouTube, whatever. Okay. So find your voice, find what you want to create content about, what you want to share, and then find a platform and start creating content under that platform and under that formatting.
Mhm.
Okay, these are
In
like,
in
yeah,
your case, so just trying to make it a little bit more actionable. What was that process like for you finding your voice? Is it kind of writing a lot of content and experimenting different things and see
yeah,
what works and what feels right for you? So it's kind of a trial and error kind of approach.
yeah. So once again, let's get back to the product management kind of playbook. Yes, you have to make a lot of different like A/B testing, different tests. You have to come up with different ideas, shooting for completely different kind of paths, and then you have to look into your analytics. Anytime you have something with more than 5% of engagement rate, that's a good signal that someone is or enough people are enjoying that type of content. Okay. And then you just start doubling that. Okay. So let me give you my own example. When I came to Twitter, my bio was something like I'm documenting the journey of building myself in public. Okay. So I knew already that I wanted to share my journey in public, like building a startup in public. And so I started to use it, but for myself as a content creator. So I really want to go full time into content creation. Let me share my journey. Okay. So this was already my mindset. So already something that is not that usual, because most of the times people building something in public is like documenting their startup, their product, whatever. And in this case, I was sharing my personal journey. Okay. So every Monday, I used to write a thread saying something like, okay, so this week, I came to Twitter every single day. I've tweeted 3 to 5 times a day. I've engaged with 3 to 5 people, sending them DMs or under their posts. And that drove me to here. Okay. And every single week for almost two months, I've made a weekly review of my own personal growth and journey, like building a startup in public. Okay. And then I started to realize that a lot of people, like a true community started to be formed around this creator journey. Okay. And this was the first step. The second step was when I remember, I really remember vividly me thinking like, hey, I really love Web3. I really love this wave. I really want to dedicate more time into this, but I'm not sure about what I know. I'm not an expert in Web3. But that's not something that cannot be the barrier. Okay. So you are not an expert if you compare yourself with the experts. You are an expert if you compare yourself with someone who knows nothing. And that was the moment that I wrote my first ever thread, my What the Fuck is Web3 series, the first thread about blockchain, the one that is pinned on my profile. And suddenly that thread went completely nuts. It completely exploded. And then I just kept doing the same. Okay. So I came up with a second thread on consensus mechanisms. I came up with a third thread on smart contracts, and go on and go on. And I started to break down all these complex topics into very simple, plain English type of knowledge. Okay. My goal was that people would be able or should be able to share that type of content with others. So this is like the journey of you finding your voice is you shooting into different places. Okay. I remember, for example, a thread that I wrote about the growth strategies that Pinterest used back when they were starting to build their company. And that one, for example, didn't resonate with my community. So why should I keep doing those? Okay. So this was so when I came to Twitter, I knew already that I wanted to share my journey. I wanted to create content about technology, innovation, startups somewhere there. And suddenly I stumble upon across the Web3 space, and that's it. So I started to create a ton of content about Web3.
Yeah, thanks for those tips. I think I was thinking about when you're talking about your voice. There's the concept from David Burrell that it says you should look for the kind of your monopoly of one. So what thing in the world it's mostly is kind of intersection of different topics. What you can be kind of the biggest expert in
Yeah.
kind of
And
creating.
I have designed my own personal monopoly.
Okay.
So my 4 circles. So David Perel, he uses the intersection of 3 to 4 circles. And initially, my four circles were already Web3 on a not Web3 back then, but it was cryptocurrency and blockchain related topics, startup growth, and documenting in public. So these were already some things that I took from there. And why? Because I was already used to develop product. I knew already how to make. So I really wanted to share these as a content creator to help people to manage their content. I knew about growth and I was passionate about growth. I have been studying growth for years. So I really wanted to share that also. And yeah, Web3 because it was a curiosity of mine, whatever. Yeah, but other stuff too. But by the way, you can make the download of my freebie on my profile, and it is a freebie on how to go from 0 to 1,000 followers on Twitter. So feel free to do it.
Yeah. Was planning to mention that in the end, but it makes sense now. Um, I was thinking, because you mentioned a lot about how you grew your part page, what kind of um, lessons or advice are the same for kind of brand page like Odyssey DAO, for example, or how, for example, think that now our audience is people trying to grow their Web3 project, their DAO, their new startup. So what kind of lessons apply to that case? Or what has been working with Odyssey DAO, for example, to make it more concrete?
Yeah.
Or maybe
Okay.
you can even start by explaining what Odyssey DAO is actually. Also, I think that's also an interesting project. And yeah, tell
Okay.
us more about Odyssey DAO and how you're planning to grow it.
Okay. So Odyssey DAO is a DAO, an educational DAO, with the mission to onboard the next 1 million people to Web3. Okay. But onboard is not necessarily someone who just read one article, but instead is actually helping people finding jobs on Web3. Okay. And this is our mission. On our case, the tactics and strategies that I have been using because it is a brand page. So the problem with brands is that most of the times people resonate with people. So if you look, for example, to the Tesla page versus Elon Musk, it is completely different. And Elon Musk is way bigger than the Tesla Twitter page. And this is normally it is the problem with brand pages. And the problem is how to give them a proper kind of personality. Okay. How to give them human traits. So that was the first thing that I have been trying to address is to give a proper personality to our brand page, like using emojis, answering people, treating them as equals. And why? Because most of the times, brand pages they tend to be like broadcasters. So just they show up every single day, but just to broadcast information and not necessarily to communicate with humans. So that was my first step. Was okay. Let's try to humanize our brand. The second step was okay, where is our content? Who is our audience? And our audience is people coming from Web2 who know barely nothing about Web3. So the content that we need to create, our voice, is content very like plain English, explaining things, breaking down these complex topics about Web3. So I have been using a lot of our own content and breaking it down into multiple threads and writing 1 to 2 threads a week over the past like month and a half. Okay. And thread by thread, there are some of them that work better. There are others that worse. But yeah, all of them have been creating some traction and bringing people in. Okay. The third thing that we have been using is like using the Odyssey Twitter account to make some spaces and some events, some giveaways. So once again, some human kind of things that is normal to watch any personal account doing. Okay. So these have been our strategies. Okay.
Yeah, I was curious how this intersects because I see that your kind of mission, so to speak, as a content creator is very related to teaching other people and to kind of to guiding other people into these kind of into Web3 and tech and growth. And Odyssey DAO's mission is similar, so kind of onboarding people, teaching them and helping them through go through this journey of understanding Web3. And yeah, I was curious to understand how those two intersect. What are the differences? How do you think? I mean, if you have ideas for content on how to educational content about Web3, how do you decide if it is a Bernie tweet or a Odyssey DAO tweet? Or what are the commonalities and differences between the two projects and the two missions?
Yeah. So okay. Um, so I have my own style when it comes to break down information. Okay. But the thing is that Odyssey likes to or prefers to deliver content on an upper level. Okay. So when it comes to content, I try to separate the content on three levels. Okay. So we have top of the funnel, and top of the funnel is like more generic kind of content. The type of content that everybody calls like evergreen kind of content. So the content that almost everybody will like to see, watch, read, whatever. Okay. And that's, for example, like breaking down or what the fuck is blockchain, explaining blockchain 101. Yes, it is very top of the funnel kind of content. Okay. Then we have the middle of the funnel. The middle of the funnel is okay, if everybody who reads about NFTs, if 10% of them want to buy an NFT, so it is normal that 10% of them will have to set up a MetaMask, a crypto wallet, and then we will come up with a couple of threads on explaining what crypto wallets are, differences between cold wallets, hot wallets, and then explaining how to set up a Rainbow or a MetaMask account. Okay. And this is like middle of the funnel. If we go back down to the bottom of the funnel is mostly where I am currently. So currently where I am is more middle and bottom of the funnel, not necessarily on so much content on top of the funnel where Odyssey DAO is currently. And bottom of the funnel is like, for example, these are so how to come up with an NFT project. Okay, so this is, for example, a thread that I'm currently working on. Okay, to publish next week. And why? Because I am currently working on an NFT project. And who is this thread for? Is for people who are currently thinking about how to start their own NFT project. Okay, and yes, once again, because Odyssey wants to onboard 1 million people, there will become the time that Odyssey will have quite similar type of thread, but it has always a different tone, a different style in terms of writing. So there is a huge overlap between what Odyssey is doing and what I'm doing. And I think that that's why Peter Young asked me to lead our growth. But at the same time, I think there is more than room enough for both. So there is not necessarily a problem, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, so tell us more. So you're not you quit Deloitte. You're focusing on creating content full time. You're helping Odyssey DAO growing as well. And you mentioned that you have an NFT project you're starting as well.
Yeah. So that's the so I am helping Odyssey DAO with their growth. I am at the same time helping another DAO in the gaming space to start to give them like track on building an audience and growing their audience and all of that. So like 20 people that I am starting to train, and I'll be training over the next couple of weeks and months. And at the same time, I'm building with João, aka Abrams. So he is my co-founder. He used to be a senior developer at Deloitte too. So he's leaving in 2 weeks also just with me. So we can dedicate full time to our own product or the thing that we are building. And yes, we can call it right now, we can call it like an NFT collection, but the NFT collection is just the first step. Okay. So the NFT collection will be used to grant lifetime access for those who believe in us, who buy the NFT, and to raise some funds. Because in the end, we want to have a full fledged DAO. We want to have our own token. And we have even been thinking about developing our own protocol so other people can launch dApps and all of that on top of us. Okay. What are we currently talking about is a platform exactly for creators and people who want to create content, to have a community of other like-minded people who want to become content creators. So our goal is to help them with like boot camps and live courses and all of that, and to help them during their entire creator's journey and career, despite the platform. Okay. And to connect people across niches, bring some deals to the table, help them close like sponsorships and partnerships and all of that. So quite a good project here. Um, and yeah, but right now we are just working on our NFT collection and our MVP or alpha, whatever, call it as you want. But yeah, for now, that's it.
Okay, yeah, nice. Sounds very interesting. So the last topic I want to explore is about social tokens and how social tokens can help creators. You kind of touched a little bit with this project that you're mentioning. So what's going to be your opinion on how a social token can help creators? So what kind of, yeah, how can it be helpful? How can it be useful? What can it add to a content creator? And especially, I mean, considering your case, someone doing that transition of trying to go full time as a content creator, what can a token bring that you could not find before with platforms like Patreon or something similar?
Yeah. So when it comes to social tokens, I like to like break them into two parts. The first part is the valuation. So that's where I think most of the people launching social tokens are currently, is because launching a social token allows to someone to invest in you today when you have so less value than what you may have in your future. So is no different than buying stocks at the IPO moment, having a 20 or 30 years kind of time frame. Okay, so I think that's a concept that most people will understand. What I'm more excited about, the second part is about redeeming tokens and social tokens. And on that end, I think that the ecosystem, the Web3 industry, we are not yet. Okay. So I think there is a huge lack of infrastructure, different apps, different kind of business models, applications, whatever, on how can people use different social tokens in an interoperable kind of universe of multiple apps, games, things, whatever. Okay. For example, and looking to content creators, currently we have almost no platforms in a decentralized kind of way of building. Okay. So that brings us a huge problem because as a content creator, if I have a huge lack of apps and tools that allow the people who buy my tokens to redeem those tokens. And if I have almost no infrastructure like to use my tokens in different platforms to create content, then they won't be necessarily extremely useful. Okay. And that's where, for example, you have huge platforms like Rally, where you as an artist or you as a creator, you can sell your own token, but at the same time, the only way you find people using them is almost just to profit and to have some money today instead of waiting like 10 years to have that money. Okay. So I love to break social tokens in these two different areas. And I'm much more excited about building the infrastructure, different tools, building the like a common layer, an interoperable common layer to use social tokens than necessarily the financial upside, because that's the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, we completely agree with that, and I think that's kind of what we do with Talent Protocol. Is first of all, we're not focusing, at least for now, so much on creators that want to go full time as creators, because in that case, you do need a way to make money and revenue stream. In those cases, income is important. What we're focusing now is mostly people who have their own jobs, and this is the token is a way for them to start building their support network, their career community, so to speak. So kind of making careers a multiplayer game and not just a single player game. And token is much more what the what represents that bond is about creating that connection and kind of the social and emotional benefits that it brings, and not only the financial ones. I think because I think the other ones are actually more powerful than the financial one. You still have that
Yeah.
layer, but
You are
uh,
talking about the human factor of supporting someone, right?
yeah,
Okay.
feeling part of their journey because there's now a actual digital asset that represents that ownership and that connection thing that changes the way people see about each other. So the way I'm much more likely to help someone that I hold their token, someone that invested in, much more likely to give them mentorship, give them advice, give them or refer them to jobs because it's theirs to be my success, even if it is just kind of feeling part of their winnings. But of course, the financial side is also um, important. But I think one thing that you mentioned, which actually is also a very good end note for this show, because next week we'll have Matt Alston, and he's actually building a platform to bring more utility to make it easy for people that have social tokens to use them. So it's not that hard nowadays to create your tokens. It's harder to create kind of a platform for you to use to give some utility to drop tokens to make your kind of fans or audience claim those tokens easily. So yeah, like you're saying, building that infrastructure, building that layer that will help people engage with you, engage with the token, and not just being an asset that you hold waiting for it to go up in price. I think that's the interesting challenges that we have ahead. And yeah, that will be mainly the focus of our conversation next week. So was good that you introduced the topic without knowing the next
Yeah.
guest was.
Yeah, but there's there's where the industry is currently, and that's exactly, for example, a couple of people have been asking me, okay, so Bernie, when can I buy a token from you? When can I have a token of yours? Whatever. And I have been evaluating different platforms to launch my own token, and where Talent Protocol naturally is one of those platforms. Not my creator kind of token, but instead my professional kind of token, because I'm a founder. I have an entire career ahead of me. So a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, my question is always the same. So, okay, but what can people actually do my token? And I'm not saying that currently they cannot do anything, because I know they can already. There are already a couple of different platforms providing the infrastructure. But I believe in a world like in 1 to 2 years, and I think that Talent Protocol is a brilliant company doing the right work with the right team to actually deliver on this vision, which is a vision where we have the right infrastructure, like an interoperable kind of infrastructure of goods and services, where people can actually change their own tokens. And the financial upside won't be just by holding, but also for utility. And that's what I believe will be the next step coming up for socials, exactly like it has been the next step for NFTs. So NFTs, at first, it was just about the art itself, and then a way of patronage and helping and supporting creators or artists. And nowadays, most projects on the NFT world, if you are launching a 10,000 kind of collection, if they have no utility, people won't like it. And that's exactly where I think the NFT world will evolve. And I think that both social tokens and other kind of tokens will evolve also, is into more function and less emotion or subjectivity, you know. But yeah, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, in our case, what we decided to do is uh, be a kind of vertically integrated platform. So you can do from the infrastructure layer to all of the things you can use the token with, all the engagement and the utility side, but also being open source and uh, interoperable. So if people just want to launch a token, they can use their token elsewhere and kind of export it. But for people that don't need that kind of ownership and autonomy, they can do all in a single platform, because I think that will help kind of onboard more people, especially because we're focusing on onboarding and bringing people into Web3 through kind of this career angle. But yeah, I think it would be interesting times ahead. And yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully we will all be able to buy your token soon on Talent Protocol or elsewhere. I'm sure we'll buy it anyway, no matter where it was first created. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Barney, today. I think time this hour flew by, and you gave us, I think, a lot of interesting insights about careers, about consulting, Twitter. I mean, a bunch of different topics. And yeah, thanks for accepting our invite. And um, I'm sure you'll have a lot of more success stories to tell soon. We might do another one of these next year to know all that happens throughout this year.
I hope so. And thank you. Thank you once again, Flip. Thank you to everyone who has been listening. And feel free to DM me anytime you need anything. Okay. So, and let's have fun building the Web3 kind of infrastructure world, whatever.
Yeah, let's have
Yeah.
fun. Let's do
Let's
this,
have
guys.
fun.
See you next week. Thank you again for coming. See you.
See you. Bye-bye.
If today's episode inspired you, don't forget to follow us on your podcast app to never miss upcoming interviews. Also, if you would like to share your journey with us, you know any hidden talent, or you just want to keep in touch with us, you can find our email in the description. This podcast is sponsored by Talent Protocol, the Web3 professional network where anyone can invest in high potential talent.